almost the same. Okay, where to start now? Thoughts can also accumulate karma. Yes, of course. So you have, when you go to actions, you have actions that where you, how do they call it, planned and done, and others actions are only planned but they're not done. Some are done but not planned, and some are neither. So all of it has an influence. It creates some consequence, some result, but it depends very much on, for example, not planned but done. Since I talk always with my hands and then there's a little insect here and I go like that and the insect is dead, so there's no intention, it's not planned. Planned but not done. I see the mosquito here, I plan to kill it, but it is planned but not done. So the planned and not done, I would say, is heavier than done but not planned, even though the mosquito is dead. And then of course it's always the completion. The completion at the end is like you are very happy that you got it. That would be, it's not that necessary for the completion, but then when it's a negative act and you're very happy that you were able to kill the mosquito, then it makes it quite heavy, yeah? And you say, I shouldn't have done it, but yeah, it kind of impulse, karmic reactions are also, you can call it impulse, when we have an impulse to do something. And then it's this gap, which is important. There is where the awareness comes in, that you see, there is this Shempa, it's called, there is this kind of energy that pushes me to go there, which is when we're not aware, it's totally unconscious, and you do something totally automatically, almost looks like automatically. Yeah, like this. So thoughts can also accumulate karma, yeah, but no, it's not a full action, okay? But it has consequences. Which exactly? This, I'm sorry, I don't know. As I said, for that you would have to be totally awakened to be able to say what kind of consequence comes. Can you explain again difference between object and subject? Yeah, well, the subject is me, the one who is creating the action, and the object is the one that is receiving the action. That is the difference between subject and object. If it's not okay for these people who ask the question, then maybe ask again. Sometimes in samsara we see someone suffering, and we are suffering because of that. We can't help them or don't have the time to help. What can we do? Is it just like this in samsara? Yeah, because we don't have the skills to help. You see, what we call help, a social worker might call this a hindrance. Yeah, like for example, if you have a drug addict or an alcoholic, and they're really in need of something, and I give them money or I give them the drugs that they need, a social worker might say, hey, don't, he really has to hit rock bottom in order to come back up. Isn't it? Then that might be the social worker who says that, but then the person is so much in need that he goes and kills somebody. So what? Wouldn't it have been better I give him something so he can calm down? See, this is why we have to become fully awakened, to really see what benefits them in the long run. But in the meantime, so what do we do? Nothing? No, we do whatever we can do. Yeah, so for example, this thing about alcoholics and drug addicts is very, very, whatever you do is wrong. You don't give them anything, is wrong. You give them something, it's also wrong. And also the results are different. Like we have programs in Switzerland where the drug addicts, for free, they get their drugs, so that they're not going into prostitution and stealing. But then also they say, oh, very nice life, thank you very much. And they do that, every day they go down to the place where they get the drugs, and that's it. They're not making any effort to, hello?
It passes.
To stop it, huh? It will subside. Okay. So, yeah. So as long as we are not... Am I coming somewhere from there? Somehow. Okay. Yeah. Everything is impermanent. Or, just even not such severe cases like addicts and alcoholics. Your children, they don't want to study, so you do the homework for them. They would be very happy. But is that really helping them? Yeah. So what you want to develop on this path is compassion and wisdom. Because just doing whatever others want you to do, that's what was it? Chogyam Trungpa, he called it idiot compassion. Yeah, it might feel very nice, you're there for everybody and all this, but then again, how do you judge? Well, don't know, really don't know. I think His Holiness, when he says, in whatever situation that you meet, as much as possible, act with kindness. And then he pauses and then he says, it's always possible to be kind. But kindness doesn't necessarily mean always to be calm and gentle and this and that. An act of kindness can be that you have the courage to grab your kid by the arm because it's always running across the road and shake it and say, stop that! Because you want to protect the child. So the kindness is not so much in the act. Of course, if we can act in a kind way, like in a gentle way, that is very good. But as parents, you know that sometimes this has zero effect. Yanai, what do you think? Absolutely. But is it then an act of unkindness when you grab them by the arm? Yeah? It's just when you do actions like this, it's really good to check that you're not angry at them. Because then you grab too hard. And they feel it. Then they get frightened and then they don't listen anymore. But if there's no anger, if it's just the energy of waking them up, they're not hurt. And they're okay and they're not afraid of you, but they will stop. Yeah? So compassion and kindness, what does it mean? Compassion and kindness means, a compassionate mind means you want them to be free from suffering, and like deep suffering, long-term suffering. Not the suffering of not having any alcohol, but the suffering of needing the alcohol. Love means you want them to be happy, and you're happy when they're happy. This is what love is. Yeah, and whatever you can do to do that. But this is why we have to attain full enlightenment, because now as unenlightened beings, we don't even know how to help ourselves. Isn't it? We don't know how to help ourselves. If I'm sick, I need to go to a doctor. If I'm really depressed and, I can't pull myself up just like this. I have to, sometimes the antidotes work, sometimes they don't work at all. Also, I can't really protect my mind. That's what I'm supposed to do, protect my mind from doing negative actions. But I can't. I'm not happy all the time. People are very surprised when they, journalists and people who interview you, and it's always this question, are you always happy? You say, no, they are very surprised. But it's not about being happy now. It's about recognizing what brings happiness and what brings suffering. It's about that. Because people, when they ask me this question, they always think that I have to give up a lot of things. So kind of, is it worthwhile? So that was this one guy in Tel Aviv one day. He is coming up the stairs. I was going down the stairs in Ganair. And so he looks at me and he says, Israelis are not very polite. When you get used to it, it's okay. Swiss person would never do that. He looks at me and said, what is this? You know, me, I, this. What's that? So is it something religious? And so I said, yeah, I'm a Buddhist nun. He said, oh, I thought so. And then he says, and? Does it work? So I said, well, what do you mean? So he said, yeah, are you happy? I said, yeah, you know, it kind of works in the sense that, yeah, you can deal with, I should have said, you can deal with when you get addressed in the street like this, you can deal with this really well without getting angry. Yeah, but it's okay. I thought it was really funny. But it's, you know, you would never, somebody who becomes a doctor or a psychologist or whatever, you would never ask them, does it work for you? Or you become an engineer or an architect or a teacher. But then when you become a religious person, then you have the duty that it works, meaning that you have to be happy. Otherwise, what's the point? Isn't it? But it's not the point of being a spiritual practitioner. Yeah. So like this, is it just like this in samsara? Yeah. You help is wrong. You don't help is also wrong. That is samsara, basically. But then there is different degrees of wrongness. Okay, here is somebody who has a really, really beautiful handwriting. Wow. Being reborn in a place where ethical conduct is almost impossible in order to survive, how can one ever be reborn in a better place? Yeah, this is why we do purification this evening. Or how an animal can be reborn as a human if its surviving is built on killing other animals. How can one ever leave the realm one is born into, human, animal, hell, God, demigod, and so forth? I ask if there is a way out. Yes. Because otherwise we would not be here, because we have been down in the hells. So if there's no way out, then we would not be here. The other question is a bit, Sam, can you please elaborate as to how the 6 realm systems, one can be reincarnated into the one's actions? How is it different from punishment? Well, because there's nobody there to punish you. In order to have a punishment, you need somebody that is punishing you. You know, is when you have a plant that nobody wants, which came from a seed that already nobody wanted, like from another plant, is the plant being punished? No, it's just the law of cause and effect, isn't it? And then it depends also, is it, I'm talking about nettles. Yeah, in Switzerland we have a lot of nettles. So some people collect them and dry them and make tea when they have too much water in the body, because then it, you know, it's how you call this? It kind of dehydrates the body. Milarepa, he was living off nettles. In the spring, you go to restaurants, you get nettle soup, or you get nettle patties, or you get nettle tea, because it's a very healthy thing. It has a lot of iron. Yeah. But if you have it in your garden and it overgrows the whole thing, it overgrows your flowers, you wouldn't be happy about it. So it's not a punishment, it's a consequence. If I drink too much alcohol, which I did, then I have a bad liver, which I have. Then if I eat, like yesterday, chips and other fried stuff, the consequence of this is I have a headache, which I have today. Is it punishment? No, it's a consequence. So this headache today is make me, the next chips will be far away. Not tomorrow. So the headache is a good thing, you know. And I'm not punishing myself not eating chips because I'm a bad person, you don't deserve it. I'm not eating them because I know the consequence. I know that the short-term benefit or the short-term pleasure that I had yesterday, because they were very good, you know, it's not really worthwhile the headache you have the next day, the whole day. Is it a punishment? Did I punish myself with the headache today? No. It's a result. It's a consequence, a natural consequence. You have a bad liver, you can't digest fat. And I love fat, what to do? You know? So like this. So it's not a punishment. And if one is born again as an animal, how can one ever work his or her way up, out? Also animals die, okay? And as I said, at the time of death, you're grasping as existence activates a seed. So if that seed that you must have created before you were in that very difficult state, if that gets activated, then you will be reborn in a better state. Now it's not easy. So you can, if you have animals, you can help them. So if you have your animals at home, if they are about to die, instead of just being sad and putting them to sleep immediately, you can play mantras for them, for example. You can, like Tekchok did with his cat. It was so nice. He was building an altar with many holy objects, and he would carry the cat around the altar while reciting mantras. So that activates seeds in the cat's minds that the cat has created in a human life. So this is why now we have to collect as many seeds as possible. Not because now we have the opportunity. But it's not easy, but it's possible. It's possible to get out. But in general, in a lower state, or in this other one here, you know, if you are born in a difficult place where there's so much conflict that you cannot survive without being unethical, then it's very, very easy. But the more we are aware of it, the more we can skillfully work with the situation. If you look at the old Tibetans, not the young Tibetans now, the Tibetans don't have it in their genes. They also had to learn this. So the old Tibetans, like in the 50s, when the Chinese army was kind of, invading the country, so they were not happy. They were not just sitting there and saying, oh, we can't do anything. They were trying to fight. But very quickly they gave up because they saw, and also the Dalai Lama says, I'm so happy that the Americans didn't come to help us against the Chinese, because who can conquer the Chinese army? And he said so many people would have died for nothing. Yeah, it's a very realistic view. Yeah. So, but when they came, then they had to flee their country, and they came out of Tibet. So the wish for them to have a free Tibet is still very much there. But in the meantime, they settle where they are, and they create a new life there. Yeah. So we have many of them in Switzerland. Switzerland took about 2,000 of them, because there's this one guy who has a lot of money, and he had a factory, and he said, he was in Tibet, and he said, oh, I will want to make it possible for them to come. So he sponsored it, so they brought 2,000 kids, and some came with lamas who disrobed so that they could, because with the vows and children and all this, not possible. So the Dalai Lama asked them to disrobe so they can be like lay people, like Dakpo Rinpoche, and what was the other one from Frankfurt? Dakyap Rinpoche and Dakpo Rinpoche. And so they accompanied these children so that they would have a spiritual guide with them also, so that they continued with these teachings. And the grown-ups, when they came out, when they talk about this, they talk with, they don't talk with anger. They say it's a result of our negative actions from the past. Yeah, like when Garchen Rinpoche was here the first time, I still remember, he sat on the throne, he said, hello, my name is Garchen. Then pretty quickly he said, I was in the Chinese prison. Why? Because it's my karmic result. But now I'm out. Yeah? And also about karma, and the ones who were in Rinko Tulku's teachings, I already told you the story. He was teaching in Switzerland a year ago, and also now he was just in Switzerland, and he talked about karma. And somebody in the audience got quite upset, angry. And she was aggressing him, kind of saying, well, are you so realized that whenever there's something, that you are always happy, knowing about karma? And then he said, no, I'm not realized. But yes, I'm pretty happy. Because why should I be unhappy? Everybody is kind to me. So many times we're unhappy, we have zero reason, just a habit to be unhappy. Because our wanting mind always wants something better, and then it doesn't settle for what is there. So yes, you can get out of the negative states, but it's difficult, so better to now in this life, attaining full awakening, a bit unrealistic. But to train the mind to be protected to fall into negative states, we can train that now. So that at the time of death, there is not a negative imprint that gets activated when we die. So that we can, at least now we can assure that, there's nothing we can be sure, but we can train to be again reborn in a state where we find the Dharma, where we have conditions, where we can practice and so on. This is why in the prayer, which points out the stages of the path, which is called the foundation of all good qualities, there's one verse. So it's very good to learn that one by heart and to repeat it from time to time. Like in all my lives, may I always meet the magnificent Dharma, be able to practice it, meet with perfect teachers, so I can quickly attain the state of Ajahara. Yeah? So if you make this thought part of you, the mind automatically, when it is lost at the time of death, and you lose everything that we kind of find pleasure in, or that we identify with, everything that now helps us to be happy, we lose at the time of death. The body, friends, family, possessions, identity, everything goes. There's nothing we can rely on. You can't take your mobile with you. Or if you think you can, there's definitely no reception in the bardo, in the intermediate state. So now is the time to learn, when the mind is not well, where does it go to? And then to see at the time of death, is that a good place to be? Yeah? And then we train. So then at the time of death, we all think and we hope that we will die totally fit and the mind totally fully alert and all this. Not many people die like this. Yeah? So then, especially when you're sick and you're tired and you're exhausted, I don't know if you have seen people dying. Not many people die peacefully, without struggle. Not many. Not many. Frighteningly few, actually. Yeah, so the more we make ourselves kind of feeling comfortable with that we will die one day, the more meaningful our life will become. So I can make some advertisement. We will have a course on how to, living peacefully, dying peacefully, soon, in 2 weeks or something like that. How to prepare for death. Because death is the only thing that we can be 100% sure that it will happen. It's the only thing. All the other stuff, maybe yes, maybe no, don't know. But death for sure. But when? This we don't know. In the absolute sense, nothing exists. What is there for me to leave karmic imprints in when I die? In the relative realities of people, how can that law of cause and effect depend upon personal perception? Don't understand completely, but so see, this is one big mistake when we talk about emptiness, that we think nothing exists. But this is just one part of reality, and you cannot separate these parts. The same way as there is impermanence in this cup, but the impermanence is not the cup, and the cup is not impermanence, but they're both together. It's two sides, two characteristics of this cup, and you cannot separate them. So the emptiness of this cup, meaning the lack or the absence of true existence of this cup, this one does not exist. You don't find anything in it that is cup. There is nothing in this thing that you can say, this is the cup. Okay? That is when they talk about nothingness or emptiness. But then this cup has another reality, which is conventional reality, but that goes together. Without impermanence, you have no cup. If the cup would be permanent, it cannot go out of existence. It would never have been clay and color and all this. It could not come into existence. It could not come into existence. It could not go out of existence. So emptiness, absolute reality, or ultimate, absolute is not a nice word, ultimate reality and conventional reality They cannot exist one without the other. They always go together, so please don't negate too much. Yeah, when we talk about emptiness. Don't think that nothing exists. So that's next weekend. We talk about emptiness in Monash. A little bit what the general conception is, when they hear emptiness, okay, then nothing exists. And the dream is a good example. Okay? Does a dream exist?
Yes.
Yes. Is it real? No. So you can have existence without it being real. Does a dream have effects? Of course. We scream, we laugh, we have an orgasm, nothing is there. But the mind totally goes with it. So, a mind who understands reality is a mind who is not fascinated by appearances. Things appear, it's like lucid dreaming. When you understand reality, it will be like lucid dreaming. You see things, they appear, but it's just appearances. Okay? Okay, Fata Morgana. You know. You've seen it? This is the only country where everybody has seen a Fata Morgana. It's great. Does it look real? Yeah. It looks totally real, like water. Is it water? No. Okay, so if you wouldn't know that this is not water, if you would fall into the appearance that this is real water, and you're thirsty, you're lost in the desert or whatever, every time you would go and run, every time you would be disappointed. And then you would start to look for the next Fata Morgana, and the next, and the next, and the next. And you will only stop running when you see it and you don't run anymore. Because every time you run, you kind of create an imprint again, the habit to run towards the Fata Morgana. So this is samsara, this is our pleasures. A pleasure is a Fata Morgana in the sense of it doesn't give you lasting happiness. It will not still your thirst. The thirst for lasting happiness. Yeah? And it's only when we stop consuming the things that then the need for them will lower, and finally you don't need them anymore. But as long as we take it and consume it, we are left with, oh no, maybe not the right object. And then we go to the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. Yeah, so with the Fata Morganas we know, so we don't run there. But with the pleasures, we still haven't given up hope that at one point I find the ultimate pleasure, and then I will be lastingly happy. It doesn't exist because happiness is in the mind. It's not outside. Okay? And the karmic imprints are, they say, stored on the very subtle consciousness that is, like the consciousness exists in 3 levels, like the gross one, who is depending on the senses in order to have experiences. There also, people ask funny questions sometimes. Somebody asks me, how would somebody see the world who cannot see, hear, and talk, and touch? How should I know? And like, just even if you ask me, how would a blind person see the world? And also with blindness, it's interesting to see, because I have a friend of mine, and her eyesight is decreasing. She can still